Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steve Brown, and in today's video, guys, let's talk about the last two games for the Toronto Maple Leafs and some interesting things that I've noticed. Now, the deserve to win-o-meter, you can toss it in the garbage sometimes. I mean, watching that game, it was clear that the Maple Leafs deserved it. The Maple Leafs deserved it. It was 3-1, and Austin Matthews had a relatively quiet game. They added the empty netter at the end there. But if you're looking at the expected goals in all situations, the Maple Leafs control that. And if you're looking at the 5-on-5 expected goals, pretty close. Jack Campbell had a fairly decent game. That's two of them in a row. And remember, in my previous video, I said that we were going game by game, and if the Maple Leafs get decent goaltending, they're more than likely going to win the majority of the games. The negative goals saved above expected doesn't really match my eye test for Connor Hellebuyck tonight. I thought he played great. Saved at least 2 or 3 surefire goals. Robbed Austin Matthews on the power play from a sweet feed from Mitch Marner. Robbed him again in the third period. I guess Matthews didn't really have too quiet of a game. He didn't really show up on the score sheet, but he was there, right? The whole team, this was a team win for the Toronto Maple Leafs in this one. He stood up for John Tavares earlier in the game, and don't worry, we will talk about Joe Thornton and Wayne Simmonds. Joe Thornton in 7 games since the trade deadline has bounced back in an awesome way. And in this game, if this is Joe emptying the tank down the stretch going into the playoffs and hopefully continuing to do this in the playoffs, yes. That's gonna be a lot of fun to watch, especially in round 2 when these teams match up more than likely. And I say that Thornton has bounced back because from March 1st to about the trade deadline or right before it, in terms of average game score, which just uses regular box score stats and a couple of simple advanced analytics, he was one of the worst Maple Leaf forwards. I think that the veteran should be given a chance to redeem himself, and that's what Joe's getting right now down the stretch, and he is definitely showing us how much he wants a Stanley Cup. And you know what, if posing nude is Joe Thornton's superpower, then I say he's got to do it more often. And we're just talking hockey. I mean, the dude looks great for being 41, but we're talking about his play here. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to have to look that up yourself because I'm not risking the video getting flagged. And it's like, Joe starts this thing with Nick Ehlers, and it's beautiful, right? Because he's baiting him. He's drawing him in. He breaks the stick on him. Then he comes back, and he gets a penalty, and the Leafs kill that off. And then he starts chirping him, and then they both go. And then Wayne Simmonds starts yelling from the bench over at Pierre-Luc Dubois, who I've had enough of. And then all 4 of them get kicked out. And it's like, with a 2-goal lead with about 2 minutes left in the game, yeah, I'll take that trade. The Leafs getting under the skin of another team? The Leafs getting called dirty before the game starts by the Jets basically all day long? I mean, hey, somebody should tell the media and the fans in Toronto that this team is dirty and not soft, all right? I think it'll turn around a lot of our Uncle Jims that have been yelling at the TV telling Nylander to do something. And you know, I don't have an Uncle Jim. Maybe you do. And I'm sorry if your name is Jim. Not because there's anything wrong with the name, I just want you to know that I'm not picking on you. I'm going to talk about Rasmus Sandin in a second here because I want to spend about 2 or 3 minutes on that, but the lines, when you're looking at them, it's just like, Nick Foligno with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, I don't know if that's going to stick around when Zach Hyman comes back because Zach Hyman, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner is the best line that the Toronto Maple Leafs have iced all season long, and it is the best line that they can ice without using the all-star line, which consists of Matthews, Tavares, and Marner. I understand you might want to spread out the wealth, but no, you don't break up your best line. You do that with the other 3. And that's not a slight on Nick Foligno. I thought he's looked great. I thought he's looked as good as he possibly can be for someone who had to drive from Ohio to Toronto and then quarantine and not play and practice with the team very much. So it's nice that he gets to start with Matthews and Marner, right? There's not a whole lot of responsibility on him or pressure on him because the other 2 guys are going to do a lot of the work there right now. And you know what? There usually is a lot of negativity swirling around the Toronto Maple Leafs, but going into that first game against the Winnipeg Jets, there was a lot of it. It's Nick Foligno's first game as the Toronto Maple Leaf, and like I said, we're going to talk about Rasmus Sandin in a minute, but he said after the game, before the game, Nick Foligno stood up in the locker room and gave a little bit of a speech, just about how excited he was to be a Toronto Maple Leaf and how honored he was to be part of such a close-knit group that really cared about each other. And if you watch the last 2 games and you don't feel that, you don't have that energy, you don't get those butterflies at all, you're not a fan. You're not a fan. You're not here because you want to see the team win. I don't know what you're doing. And like I said, we're living game by game here. Never mind the 5-game losing streak. Never mind the little bit of a 3-game skid before they went on a bit of a run here. We're living game by game. In the last 2 games, have been friggin' awesome. Rasmus. I mean, I said for about a month before the deadline that I wanted another defenseman to really shore up the top six. Someone who you can depend on a little bit more than the Maple Leafs were trusting of Zach Bogosian and Travis Dermott. Someone to assist them if one of the guys in the top four went down to injury and the trade deadline came and passed and they got Ben Hutton. Wasn't really what I had imagined, and that's not a slight on him. He's a useful player in his own right, but I was expecting a little bit more. Like we were talking about Jamie Alexiak or Mike Rielly, some of those names. Rasmus Sandin has come in here and he's played 3 games and he's been just about as good as you could ask him to be. And it's not that I never had faith in Rasmus Sandin, okay? I bought 5 of his Young Guns cards last year for about $9 or $10 each. I just didn't want to put that pressure on him. I didn't want to have to put the pressure on him saying that he needs to be better than Travis Dermott or Zach Bogosian in order for me to be comfortable with this decor going into the playoffs. But he's come in and he's done exactly that. And the fact that Kyle Dubas didn't go out there and acquire another defenseman beyond Ben Hutton or a better one shows how much faith he has in Rasmus Sandin. And it's just like, yes, give me more. Give me more. I want to see more. I want to see him on power play 1. I want to see him elevated in the lineup. And we saw that. We saw him playing with Morgan Rielly for a little bit. And it's like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's interesting. And you guys already know what I'm going to say. Whenever I talked about acquiring a defenseman, I wanted someone who could take away key important defensive minutes from Morgan Rielly. Like if you're up by 3-1 in the third period, let's say, maybe you don't want Morgan out there so much. And I wouldn't blame you. Guy's frustrating to watch sometimes defensively. And we saw Morgan Rielly play with Rasmus Sandin, and that's interesting, because it frees up TJ Brody. And we saw TJ Brody, Jake Muzzin play together. Justin Holl's had his struggles over the last 10 games, and really looked so great. But if you could free up TJ Brody to play with Jake Muzzin and they can find some sort of chemistry, yeah, you can lock down games with those two. And that's what the stretch run is, right? You're figuring out things that might work for you in the playoffs, things that you might need to try, things that situationally do matter. It's better that you find that out, whether that works or not, than have to do it in game 2 of the playoffs, and then you end up with Patrick Marleau and Connor Brown on the wings of William Nylander with him playing center for the rest of the series, and it really doesn't work. You need a contingency plan, and Rasmus Sandin so far, pretty damn good one. And I hear some people kind of hooming and hawing about maybe Rasmus Sandin replaces Morgan Rielly. Or he can replace him this offseason, as early as next year. And it's like Morgan Rielly's contract is due at the end of next season. Oh, I don't know how much money he's going to want. If it's this much, I don't want him. And people start having this conversation with themselves. And they drive themselves so far from reality. So let's put this in perspective. If you're looking at points per game since the 2016-2017 season for all of defensemen, Torrey Krug is 5th. With .72, 237 points in 327 games. Morgan Rielly is 9th with 208 points in 329 games, .63 points per game. If we're looking at the goals above replacement over that same sample on evolvinghockey.com here, you're going to see Torrey Krug slightly edges out Morgan Rielly. If you're looking at the expected goals above replacement there, the gap is a bit closer and Rielly actually overtakes him over that sample, but fairly comparable. Torrey Krug signed a contract that fits with the scope of things that are going on with the NHL right now financially, October 9th, 2020, for $6.5 million a season in 7 years. I don't see how Morgan can justify asking for more than that. I mean, maybe if the term was a bit shorter, but then you can kind of convince him here. What about a more favorable bonus structure? Morgan, how do you like that? Maybe you take a 5-year deal and we give you a more favorable bonus structure. How does that sound? And if you think 6.5 mil is a bit too much for him, I mean, it's not that much of a raise compared to what he's making right now. And if he says no to that, well, then that's a different conversation, right? That hasn't happened yet, so why are we acting like it has? And Rasmus Sandin has played 4 games this year, okay? I want to see a full season of what he can do before I decide to trade a guy that's been here the longest out of anyone. And the Lightning had Mikhail Sergachev, Ryan McDonough, and Victor Hedman on their left side. And they didn't start exploring the idea or wanting to trade either McDonough or Hedman. And I'm not saying that Rielly's either one of those guys. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying they didn't explore trying to trade the 2 guys above him on the depth chart the second that Sergachev started playing well. They said, well, can we afford this? They figured out, yes, we can. And then they continued to roll with it. The Toronto Maple Leafs, We don't know. We don't know. Morgan hasn't said anything. They haven't talked about a contract yet. We don't know. And it's like, I understand that the guy is frustrating sometimes, but he's got a lot of responsibility. And I don't want to put that on Rasmus Sandin so early in his career. And it's like, maybe if you lessened that responsibility a little bit, maybe we'd be less frustrated with Morgan Rielly and he can continue to do the amazing things that he does offensively. But I don't know, once the power play gets back to normal and if the goaltending continues to be consistent, what else are people going to really be upset about? It's the first place team and the best one that we've had in a long, long time. Can we just enjoy it? To me, this team is trying to win right now, and there is no trade that you can make this offseason that includes Morgan Rielly in it where the Leafs come out being better next year, even if you want to consider the cap savings, because they're like, oh, you could trade Rielly, you can get a young forward, and then you can go out and take the cap savings and sign a defenseman. Who? What are you going to do? Bring back Tyson Barrie? Cody Ceci? A 33-year-old Alec Martinez having a career year with the Vegas Golden Knights? There's no one here that excites me even in the slightest. And if you're trading Rielly for a younger defenseman, it's not going to be a defenseman that's as good as him. So you're still making the team worse in a year where they need to be in. They need to win. Unless there's a hockey trade that presents itself, I just don't see it being possible. But I'm going to leave you guys with a question here. End off the video. The Maple Leafs lineup is what it is right now, but you got Zach Hyman on IR, or LTIR, or whatever, and Riley Nash is also injured. Riley Nash is one of the better third, fourth line shutdown centers in the entire NHL. There's no way that he's sitting out if he's healthy. Pierre Engvall, I can kick out of the lineup. I don't care. I won't argue too much. I'm not going to die on that hill. But who comes out? Who comes out for those two guys? It's not an easy decision. It's not going to be an easy decision. But what I do know is that depth is not a bad thing. It's a great thing, and it allows you not to rush guys like Zach Hyman and Riley Nash back from injury. So make sure to like the video if you did like it and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, remember, game by game. Game by game. And everything right now, hard to beat it. Really hard to beat it.